Welcome to the MCU, Miss Marvel, and since Carol skipped over that moniker on the way to captain status, it's your name to wield. Kamala Khan has made her live-action debut in the new Disney Plus series, and she's off to a great start. I'm Chris Goodmakers, and I'm here to break down the first episode and talk about some of the cool details, Easter eggs, and comic differences. Let's start with the really fun stuff. Cosplay! AvengersCon is a big focus of the first episode, and central to that is the Miss Marvel costume competition. Kamala has her own terrific costume with a representation of Captain Marvel's appearance at the climax of Endgame. Her jacket is a highlight, and now I'm wondering where I can find it in my size. The other entries aren't as high effort as hers, however. Enter Zoe Zimmer. This teenage rival to Kamala is wearing an earlier comic outfit from Danvers' time as Miss Marvel. It's based on one of her first looks. However, Bruno is right that it's still not accurate because Zoe has the colors inverted. Try harder, Zoe. There are other contestants too, and among them are a few other Endgame and Captain Marvel 2019 outfits. The one in the center looks like she has the best chance of giving Kamala a run for her money and accuracy. There's also a delightfully low-budget version featuring a motorcycle helmet and goggles like a 1970s Steve Rogers. Special shout out to the pair of Captain Marvels in dresses. One, a full-themed ball gown. I think Thanos would have been more intimidated if Carol showed up for battle in that. AvengersCon is filled with other attendees in costume. Among the more notable ones are the various girls dressed as the Tony Stark dancers from Iron Man 2. In our world, that's a neat bit of cosplay, but in universe, it's an incredibly esoteric reference to a single event that ultimately ended in tragedy. We will cycle back to AvengersCon later because I am not done talking about this MCU-Con. Don't forget to hit the ball pit! In the meantime, let's talk about something else I love about this new series. Cartoons! One aspect of the new series that is very quickly making it stand apart from the MCU's other fare are the fun animations. Kamala is an aspiring animator and YouTuber, and this series opens with her latest video recreating Endgame's climax. It's a papercraft stop-motion animation set to some funky synth pop. There are a lot of fun details, including the very quick shot of a drawing comparing Miss Marvel to a cockatiel. As someone who has two, that's an accurate representation of Carol's personality. Kamala has so many details about the Avengers' latest brawl, in part because a very chatty Scott Lang has been running his mouth all over the podcast sphere. The shot of one such interview thumbnail is for This Powered Life, a play on the famous NPR podcast This American Life. The name of the episode is Big Me, Little Me, which, much like Scott, is too cheeky by half. The art styles that are all over this episode are the work of multiple talented creators in Marvel's ranks. Kamala's personal style on display in her video is taken from the works of Erica Henderson. Known for the series Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, her more cartoony aspects create an instant humor to even the largest battles. The episode closes on the work of another talented artist. Adrian Alphona is the artist who first envisioned Kamala in her debut run. His works created a young protagonist that was full of emotion and relatability. Disney and this series owes a lot to Alphona's design, and it's nice to see it on display. Marvel artists have had deep struggles with the company lately when it comes to recognition for their works, so it's important to highlight the creativity of these talented people. Kamala is a budding YouTuber with some pretty impressive skills when it comes to both editing and animation. As the opening winds down, we get a quick glimpse of her page. Her channel, Sloth Baby Productions, features videos like Bitten by a Radioactive Feminist and Ant-Man and the Wasp's Romantic Vacation in Paris. Where the hell do I subscribe? I hope she has a 2-hour video on her Steve Bucky ship. The school counselor is introduced midway through the first episode, and he is the delightfully personable Mr. Wilson. There are actually two possible references in the character's name. One is far more likely than the other. The first is the Marvel antagonist Mr. Wilson, who is an ancient being who is from the realm known as Otherworld. He is the leader of a group known as the Manchester Gods. The second possibility is that his name is a reference to Kamala Khan's co-creator, G. Willow Wilson. Gwendolyn Wilson is a New Jersey native, and in 2014, she crafted the character with artist Adrian Alphona. It's more likely that the counselor's name is a reference to the character's creator, and he's not actually an interdimensional god figure. But this is the MCU, and crazier shit has happened.
Mr. Wilson was my father. My name is Gabe. His name was also Gabe, so...
Now for a truly important observation that may rock the very foundation of the Marvel Universe. Warning viewer, there's no going back once you know the horrid truth. Apparently the MCU name for a slushie is a Smushee.
Ugh, I felt dirty just saying that.
I'm not from New Jersey, so if Smushies are a real thing there, then I'm deeply sorry.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. He's not paying his fair share and the rent is through the roof.
Yes, they changed her powers for the series, and in a big way too. In the comics, Kamala has powers very similar to those of Mr. Fantastic, though she tends to use them in a very different way. The young hero can stretch her body and limbs, inflate her fists and feet, grow and shrink, and even shapeshift entirely. She gained her powers from the Terrigen Mist, a substance that activates the latent inhuman gene in her and others. The mist spread over the world in the comics as part of a larger event that created a swath of new heroes and villains. What a convenient way to introduce loads of new intellectual properties. Stan Lee would be proud. In the show, Kamala receives a mysterious bangle from her yet unseen Nani. Deciding it would make a cool cosplay accessory, she puts it on before her big stage walk and suddenly gains a new distinct set of powers. She can manifest hard light. It's these glowy, crystal-like formations that form from the energy surrounding her body. At one point, she does use it to manifest a large hand to catch a falling Zoe, but it quickly disappears into nothingness. The changes in her powers means a lot of difference for the character, and we will have to see how it affects the story as the season unfolds.
Personally, I'm as disappointed in this change as everybody else.
It makes Kamala more akin to a Green Lantern than the inflato-fist fangirl we all love. So far, this is the only major change to the character, however. Her personality and passions remain very faithful to her comic self. Like all the Marvel properties, there is the obligatory post-credit sequence featuring two cops talking about Kamala's recent display of her powers. These two are actually agents with the Department of Damage Control. Their badges display the DODC markings prominently. Damage Control has thus far only really been featured in the Tom Holland Spider-Man films. There's been ongoing back and forth between Sony and Marvel about a potential Damage Control television series. However, plans for the show still remain ethereal at best. The department may play a major role in the rest of the season, and this marks their first appearance outside a Sony co-production.
No comment section. The mention in Iron Man and one episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. do not count.
One of the most inventive things I have seen in television this year is easily the way animations and dialogue are placed diegetically into the scene. For people who don't speak film nerd, that means they show up around Kamala like a part of the scenery. This is most on display with a text conversation between Kamala and Bruno about her troubles in attending the upcoming convention. The stars and painted road are pretty notable, but it's the emoji-filled pan up over the building that's especially creative. Visual pop-ups have long been a staple of texting on screen, since Humberto Cabbage Patch made it look so cool in BBC's Sherlock. The location of AvengersCon is the birthplace of Captain America, as the sign out front states. This is the army base that Steve Rogers trained at during the early events of Captain America, the First Avenger. This is a true fan expo, and not a big corporate event like the real-life Comic-Con. You can tell because it's being held in an old, disused army base that not 7 years ago housed a small German man trapped in a 1970s computer. It looks like there's been some cleanup and preparation for the event, as there's not a giant missile crater next to the t-shirt stand. Though I bet they are selling old pieces of Zola next to the Bruce Banner body pillows.
Not Hulk, Bruce Banner.
The aspect ratio is the fancy term for how much of the screen is filled by the picture. Ms. Marvel is mostly in the traditional format you see in theatrical films. However, her plan is presented in this animated bordered format. The transition between these two ratios is a tricky one because the last thing you want to do is draw attention to the black bars and not to the story you are telling. Ms. Marvel avoids this by doing two things. Firstly, there is a simple animation that transitions back to reality and then pulls the border back. But the crucial moment is how Kamala, now centered in the frame, walks towards the camera at the same time the picture zooms out and returns to the normal aspect ratio. It's probably the single best shot in this episode, and if the rest of the series keeps up with this skill and creativity, Ms. Marvel could be the best MCU property this year. Ms. Marvel is off to a fantastic start, and with the level of talent behind and in front of the camera, there is a lot to look forward to. It's been harder for Marvel to impress me these days. But with its premiere episode, the new series has the potential to be a standout for not just this phase, but the MCU as a whole. The changes in her powers and her origins are odd. They seem to be rooted in some strange ideas about what an audience can and can't accept in a universe that includes a talking raccoon and a Pegasus riding bisexual icon. Join me next week as I break down episode 2, where maybe we'll find out if the school guidance counselor spontaneously came into being in the realm of Outerworld.